What if every country in the UFC fought? What's up, boys? We are back. Thank you guys so much for letting us hit 800 subscribers. It truly means the world to me. Basically, today we have a little bit of a special video. We're going to be looking at the top 6 best countries in the UFC. I picked the best top 5 fighters from these countries, and I basically chose one person to fight for their country. We elected one person to fight for their country, and they're going to be doing a bracket, 6-man tournament to decide what the best country is. This is going to be a little bit of a pound for pound tournament, so no weight classes are allowed. It's just skill for skill. The top 6 best countries in the UFC, their best fighter will be elected by a random wheel spinner. Let's get into it. Let's do the first spin. The first country we do have electing, it's gonna be Brazil. So there are nominees: Alex Pereira, Diego Lopez, Charles Oliveira, Gene the Dream Silva, and Kyle Barahalo. I threw a little bit of fighting nerds in there because I didn't really know what to do. I was gonna throw Carlos Prates in there, but Carlos Prates got fraud checked. So let's spin the wheel. Who's gonna do it? Who's gonna be representing Brazil? It's gonna be Kyle Borralho. Okay, that's a pretty good pick for Brazil. Alex Pereira probably would have been the preferred nominee. But here are the nominees from Mexico: Brandon Moreno, Yair Rodriguez, Henry Cejudo, Brian Ortega, and Dominic Reyes. Let's spin the wheel. Who is going to represent Mexico? It's going to be Brian Ortega, the Mexican-American representing Mexico. That is a pretty bad pick for Mexico. But let's go to England's nominees. England nominees are Tom Aspinall, Leon Edwards, Paddy Pimblett, Ron Murphy, and Arnold Allen. Spin the wheel. Who is going to represent England? It's going to be Ron Murphy, coming off a win to Josh Emmett. That is a pretty good, well-rounded pick for England. Let's get into the next country. America's nominees consist of John Jones, Max Holloway, Sean O'Malley, Dustin Poirier, and Sean Strickland, the true American. Let's see who will represent America for this challenge. It's going to be John Jones. I mean, this is just Dana White privilege at his finest. I'm not even Dana White, but even in this simulation, John Jones has privilege. Australia's nominees, though, is going to be Alexander Volkanovski, Robert Whittaker, Jack Della Maddalena, Kai Kara France, and Israel Adesanya. Who's going to do it? Who's going to do it to represent Australia? It's going to be Robert Whittaker, dude. I know Izzy and a couple other people are New Zealand guys, but, I didn't really have a lot of options for Australia, so that's why he was on it. He didn't win it anyway, so it doesn't really matter. But next, we have to choose 2 guys to automatically go to the quarterfinals due to this being a 6-man tournament. It sucks, it can't be an even number, but there's not that many top nations in the UFC. So let's choose the lucky 2 guys to have to skip the round of 16, or the round of 6, I guess. Let's see, this first guy to skip, John Jones, dude. Of course, this guy, he gets everything handed him. I mean, I can speak for everyone and say that we hate John Jones. The next lucky guy who gets to skip the first round, who's it gonna be? Who's gonna be the lucky man? It's gonna be Robert Whittaker. Okay, Robert Whittaker's a lovely guy. We all love Robert Whittaker, so this one's a little bit better than John Jones, who's literally a supervillain. So this is what the bracket looks like heading into it. Now let's talk about all these matchups, because the matchups are pretty good. We have Kyle Borralho versus Brian Ortega. We have Ron Murphy versus Magomed Ankalaev, and we have John Jones and Robert Whittaker sitting, waiting for their opponent to be chosen, I guess. Real quick, I just want to mention again that it is pound for pound style. Obviously, if Magomed Ankalaev and Ron Murphy actually fought, I think we all know who would win. But this is just consider their skill rather than their size. All right, let's talk about these matchups. Alright, dude, let's talk about the first matchup, which is Kyle Borralho versus Brian Ortega. I know this is a very random matchmaking right here. The whole video is just kind of chaotic. It's just random as heck. But let's talk about this matchup, dude. So Kyle Borralho, he's a pretty well-rounded striker, Brian Ortega, he's pretty well-rounded too, I guess. His striking, obviously, is not as good as it used to be. But, dude, my image of Brian Ortega is just ruined from that Diego Lopez fight, dude. Brian Ortega was just fat. He looked like he didn't want to be there. His striking was off. I cannot get that version of Brian Ortega out of my head because, I don't know, he just looked disgusting there, dude. And I honestly think this is a very hard stylistic matchup for Brian Ortega, dude. I mean, Kyle Borralho would piece up Brian Ortega on the feet, dude. I don't care what you're going to say. Bro, Brian Ortega's striking is actually good. He does have okay striking, He can catch you now and then. But just long term throughout the fight, you're not going to get pieced up by Brian Ortega. I can see Kyle Brawler just being too technical. I don't see Brian Ortega taking Brawlhalla down, dude. Brawlhalla is just too strong. I mean, he doesn't have a dad bod like Brian Ortega. And I know we're not technically counting size, but Brawlhalla is just physically stronger. I don't know how to really describe it. I think I'm just going to go with Brawlhalla on this one. He's going to do it for Brazil. So Brazil eliminates Mexico, and he is on to the semifinal. So that's that for that matchup. The next matchup we do have is Magomed Ankalaev versus Lerone Murphy. Bro, I think we can all say that we all hate Lerone Murphy. Most boring fighter ever. But, while I was making this video, I low-key realized that these guys have, like, the exact same fighting style, dude. Lerone Murphy, he doesn't throw as much kicks, but their fighting style, their boxing, their wrestling, their smudge grappling, it's very similar, Magomed Ankalaev can smudge you against the cage a little bit better, but Lerone Murphy actually has good takedown defense, and defensively, he's just good on the ground. Offensively, Lerone Murphy isn't that good on the ground, but defensively, he is. But Big Ank, dude, Big Ank just has elite boxing. He has actual power in his hands. Lerone Murphy does not have power in his hands, and he's the champion of light heavyweight division, dude. He has a pretty good resume. He's built up a pretty good resume. He has knockout power. He's just elite, and I think a lot of people don't talk about how good Magomed Ankalaev actually is. So I got Magomed Ankalaev taking it for Russia on this one, eliminated England. So that's that. The next fight we do have, moving on to the semifinal, Brawlhalla versus John. Let me tell you about this kid, John Jones. I mean, I'm not going to talk to you about this one for too long, dude. I'm not going to try to gaslight you like, bro, Kyle Brawlhalla, he has a good chance against John Jones. Like, no. John Jones, obviously, he's the greatest of all time, and I'm just going to say it. John Jones would have a field day against Kyle Brawlhalla, dude. Those oblique kicks would absolutely kill Brawlhalla's knees. John Jones' clinch work, he's too good. He has the experience. Brawlhalla is green in the UFC. Brawlhalla is well-rounded. I'm not that high on John Jones right now. I think John Jones is just a fat heavyweight, but it's still John Jones, dude. Brawlhalla could at least survive a decision against Jones, but obviously John Jones is the winner. He takes it for Team America, and he eliminates Team Brazil. So John Jones is on to the final, going on to the second semifinal. Magomed Ankalaev versus Robert Whittaker. Robert Whittaker's getting the belt back, bro. This is actually a pretty hard matchup for Magomed Ankalaev. I think this is a hard matchup for Robert Whittaker too. These are the fun matchups that I'm happy we're getting in this video. So Robert Whittaker's chin, it might be a little bit of a problem, dude. Whittaker has had some interesting moments with his chin. He got knocked down by Izzy. Izzy doesn't have that much power, and I'm not saying he has a horrible chin, but he can't really take a punch that well. I mean, he's not going to get completely flatlined, but he's probably going to get knocked down. Magomed Ankalaev does have power. Whittaker does have some weird blitzes forward. He has good footwork, but just those blitzes forward, I think that could be hard for Big Ank. But also, I just think Ankalaev is just that good, dude. I love Whittaker, but you aren't gonna out tit for tat Ankalaev. You're not gonna finish Ankalaev. You don't have the submission threat, and you certainly don't have the knockout threat, dude. When was the last time Robert Whittaker knocked down an actual ranked fighter that isn't Ikram Aliskerov? Ankalaev, he can take this to the ground anytime he wants. He can smudge Robert Whittaker against the cage, and for that reason, I'm gonna go with Ankalaev here, dude. I think Ankalaev, he's just so technically good. I'm not gonna glaze Ankalaev for a video, but you guys know what I'm saying, and that means that Robert Whittaker is eliminated. He is losing it for Australia, but Russia versus America, dude. That is the final. It's a very familiar scene. It's the Soviet Union versus America, dude. Oh, we're going back to World War II, dude. Let's talk about this, dude. Ankalaev versus John Jones. Russia versus America in the final of the Outpost Olympics. This is actually a banger matchup, dude. This is a matchup that could maybe have happened at one point, and a lot of people are just automatically gonna assume John Jones. He, like, that's the thing. When I got John Jones on the wheel spinner, he's the greatest of all time. So it's kind of like rough to have him on this, but I don't know. I think Magomed Ankalaev has a good chance. Who is gonna win the Outpost Olympics? This is the final, and in terms of how I've seen this fight going, Ankalaev can check John Jones' leg kicks. John Jones' leg kicks, they're very choreographed now. They're not like how he used to be when he was throwing kicks at every angle. Now he's just a fat blob, and he's not going against Stipe Miocic just do trick shots against. His leg kicks are very telegraphed. His even every punch is just very telegraphed. You can see when it's coming. And Ankalaev, he's in his prime. Ankalaev is going to be able to check these leg kicks. He checked the leg kicks against Pereira. Pereira is one of the best leg kickers in the UFC. And just Magomed Ankalaev's calm bomb striking and just technicalness and preciseness, dude, I think John Jones is going to have a serious problem. I mean, John Jones has had decent movement throughout his career, but at this time, I'm not really rating his movement. In the Stipe fight, he was getting kind of pieced up when he was trying to circle around Stipe Miocic, and that is 41-year-old Stipe Miocic. But John Jones lost to Dominic Reyes, and Dominic Reyes is a great counter striker. You want to know who else is a great counter striker? Magomed Ankalaev, dude. Magomed Ankalaev is winning this. I'm sorry. I'm not picking John Jones based on aura anymore. This is not 2015. In 2015, I would have picked John Jones. But this is a perfect matchup for Magomed Ankalaev. Magomed Ankalaev clearly beat Pereira, and he's a long and rangey striker in Pereira. So, John Jones is a long and... Oh, gosh, I can't talk. John Jones is a long and rangey striker as well. I'm not comparing John Jones and Pereira, but they have similar builds. I just think Magomed Ankalaev, he's our Outpost Olympics winner. Boys, Russia wins. Russia beats America in the finals. And thank you guys so much for watching. This was a little bit of a fun video. Thank you guys so much for 800 subscribers. And MMA Outpost out.